Hello and welcome to Bodied, a Cloud9 podcast. And for this week, a London Spitfire podcast due to the Overwatch League starting back up. This week, Havoc is still at work. He should be back next week. And I have Dr. Manhatten with me.
What goes on, everybody? I'm excited for this really exciting week of Cloud9 esports and just mainly with London stuff. So, yeah, I'm pumped. Definitely pumped.
Yeah, and I'm going to quickly apologize if there's any background noise in my audio. It sounds like the guy downstairs decided to redo his floors at 6 o'clock on a Monday evening. So, doing my best. We're bringing you the content a little earlier this week due to the fact that the Spitfire start on Thursday and due to life circumstances that require us to do it this early anyway. So welcome aboard and let's get started. First off, the PUBG team finished the second week of the MPL in third. They finished the first day of the week in second, but they finished the total week in third behind Tempo Storm and Shoot to Kill. I can tell you that Tempo Storm's a very good team, but I actually did not get a chance to watch any of the PUBG games. But it is on my watch to make sure I get ahead of that because our PUBG team is legit.
Yeah. I actually didn't get a chance. That was actually one of the very few weeks I didn't get the chance to see PUBG. But if we're in the running with Tempo Storm, which from what I've seen in a few lands before the whole thing before the MPL happened, it's actually good to see. But yeah, I unfortunately didn't get to watch too much of PUBG over the past week.
Yeah, we promise to bring you more content for that in the future. There wasn't really much that has happened since we last recorded besides that, so we're gonna skip everything that's non-existent and just jump straight to Overwatch League. The big thing for the Spitfire, I guess, is Susie stepped down as GM. I have to assume it's because she married Monte Cristo exclusively.
Perhaps. That and I don't know. Maybe she has much more bigger roles in terms of the way the overall the team fits. I mean, to be fair, they have been dating for I think according to Jacob Wolf, they've been dating for quite some time actually, about 5-6 years in secret. But congratulations to her on her marriage. As for her role, I think that it felt like they purposely were giving her more of a role for youth training, and obviously Cloud9 wants to reach their they want to extend their reach more to other regions. I mean, we have a fucking PUBG Korean and a Fortnite Korean team, for God's sake. So I mean, she could probably extend her roles in other places there. And Robin, we know, is a very well suited manager. This is the guy who was the GM under Reaper back when we first got Impact and Ray, and he seems to get along a lot well with the London boys. So I mean, for all we know, it's probably like I think that it's good that Robin transitions to that role for them. And I love the guy. Like, he's a great guy.
All right. I think we need to announce the Susie's new role first. She's the director of Yeet, so she will be directing all of the yeeting that's going to be going on, which actually stands for the Youth Esports Education and Training for Cloud9 as a whole. I think it's a really cool kind of role that we kind of made for her, just because I think it shows that Jack is prepared to make esports and Cloud9 like this long-term thing, like something that lasts beyond him and kind of sets Cloud9 up for not just 2 years ahead, but 5, 10, 15, and 20 years into the future, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, and the fact that I think they said her role is what youth esports education. It's really good to see out of Cloud9 because I mean we're starting to see this happen a bit more with. I mean we've seen this in other sports for years. I mean if anybody who watches European football or soccer as we call it here, I mean we see stuff like U18 teams all the time, or like like they have much more serious little leagues for like the MLB to my knowledge. We're even starting to see it with esports where TSM has like what they call their Fortnite junior team, where it's like a bunch of like 14-year-old kids playing Fortnite because they can't legally can't compete in tournaments yet. And I think they just launched a League of Legends junior team where it's basically just all these talented challenger players under like 15, like these guys are like 15, 16. I actually know one of the guys, fun fact, or I competed with him at a tournament. I don't know him too personally, but these guys are like 17, 16-year-old dudes who can't play an LCS yet or be on an academy team, but it's about getting the early stages before transitioning from some kid in high school or to turning into basically them trying to make sure that esports is good for the long term and also stem that kind of passion at a very early age for them. And I think that Susie is very, very well suited for that.
Yeah, so she wasn't the only change to the roster. Player wise, we have most of the returning players. Bedosin's still there, Birdring, Fury, Gesture, Nuss. Am I saying that right? It's been a while since I've
Yes, yes, yes.
verbally talked about the Spitfire team. And Prophet, as we all know, as our God and Savior. The new players we have are Guard and Krillin. Krillin is just like a high level player, I guess, picked straight out of solo queue or whatever. And Guard is from the Element Mystic, which is a Korean team, and we lost Closer, which was our big loss. There was a coaching change too.
Yes, one of the more controversial. It was controversial at first, up until Monty did like a whole like Monty musings on it. It is Coach Chengun left the team. He was one of the coaches. He left to Seoul Dynasty, whereas we got Coach 815. That's literally his name. His name's literally Coach
Yeah.
815. But he was the former coach for MVP Space, and people look at his Overwatch results and say like, whoa, whoa, like what the hell, like why are we getting this guy? He hasn't done anything in contenders. And the reality of Coach 815 is that his coaching extends much further than Overwatch. He actually was a StarCraft coach, actually, and that's kind of the thing in Korea, especially in Korean esports on Korean teams, is like usually get these high level like StarCraft or like coaches in like other regions of the world. They're kind of more like general managers in like baseball, where they just oversee the much bigger picture in terms of like how the team is managed, and then you also have like little coaches, kind of like football as well, where you have like the quarterbacks coach, the linebackers coach, and then you have the one head coach who oversees everything. That's kind of what 815 is in the London's role, and we see he actually had somewhat promising results, but a lot of his success got ruined by the fact that success or could have been success was ruined by the fact that every time in contenders when MVP Space wanted to go on a team, they always got dicked by Runaway in the draw, and Runaway, as we know, was the contender champion, so that seemed to be like his kryptonite. So Monty's whole musings that he said was give the guy a chance a bit, because he's a really well respected coach in Korea. All the London players kind of know who he is, and actually, I want to say I forget who has experience with him on London that said, or one of the coaches that said he's a really good coach, and he seems to be well respected by the players too, or at least enough that they got him for the job. So that's the main coaching position that we need to look forward to for the season 2 of Overwatch League.
Or yeah, it sounds like he has like 11 years of coaching in his past. So it seems like of the esports coaches, like he's one of like the most experienced that we could find as a whole, even if it's not so much in Overwatch. Um, if the players are happy with him, then I think that we do need to give him a chance, just due to the fact that like the players themselves are at such a high mechanical level that I think that's someone who can work in that kind of like head coach for an NFL team function is something that could be a really good for us. Um, so we do have some new roster changes, but there is also a lot of new stuff going on in Overwatch League in general. Among the changes, the big ones, we've added 8 teams to Overwatch League. The Atlanta Reign, the Paris Eternal, or Toronto Defiant, Washington Justice, Chengdu Hunters, the Guangzhou Charge, the Hangzhou Spark, and the Vancouver Titans. I'm sorry if I pronounced any of those wrong. I'm American as it goes. I know you, Dr. Manhattan, you live in the the Washington DC area, so you have some experience with the Washington Justice already, kind of.
Yeah, no, it is actually very exciting from that the Washington Justice are coming, and I kind of want to talk kind of the point of view in case any of the listeners I kind of don't have like an Overwatch team like or like aren't really like in an area where like a metropolitan area or something like that, but like it's being very they're looked at with very much anticipation with this team. So Washington as a whole, if you don't know, is a really big sports city. For those of you guys don't know, despite the fact that outside of the Stanley Cup, we haven't done anything in decades. But the reality is just it's because it's such a big sports city as a whole. It's already kind of natural that oh hey why don't we get an Overwatch team? So like I mean, so that's kind of starting too. The owners, I'm not sure how necessarily it's intertwined, because most of the teams that are in Overwatch League, I think Cloud9 and London are the only exception, but like most of the ownership is kind of intertwined with the location. For example, if we look at Seoul Dynasty, they're owned by KSV, which is like I think it's like a venture capital company in Seoul. Or the Chengdu Hunters. They're actually owned by the same people who own Royal Never Give Up and you guys know them for their League of Legends team, and that's actually where the headquarters of that company are located in. So yeah, I can go on and on with that, but I gotta look up how they're intertwined with Washington Justice and the ownership. But no, it's actually really exciting. I'm from they have I think they're opening against the NYXL this Saturday, and there's a one of the biggest bars in the area is now bought out, and they're doing a watch party. Like here we're gonna give out some stuff. I've talked to some of the some of the overseers. There's like a fan club here called the Washington Justice League, and it's just I can already see like it's exciting. It's an exciting time in Washington esports, and Washington, is starting to try to become like one of the main East Coast hubs for esports. I mean, the only other place that we've seen try to cop on that train is New York, but it's exciting. I just can't stop saying that enough. It's a super exciting time for a lot of DC sports and like for the Washington Justice, and I'm excited to see them what they can do. Even though at heart I will always love the Spitfire.
Yeah, and some of the branding is kind of more along the lines of what you would expect from maybe a soccer team or another professional sports league. Their logo looks like straight out of like um not a knockoff, but rejected a logo for the United States national team.
Like the LMS or something like that.
Yeah.
Like yeah,
Um.
it kind of does. I'm not gonna lie, but
Yeah.
I mean they're trying to. I felt like I mean with them the only thing I will criticize, I think they went a bit too hard with the whole like oh yeah it's the nation's capital, because it's like yeah, that's kind of that would have worked if this was like an America only thing, but it's like we have Chengdu and we have Seoul and we have Vancouver and London. It's like the whole you being the capital of the United States doesn't work as much in an international league. But I mean, A for effort, and also I just feel like the red. I mean, I think even Fiona on Fire tweeted he feels like red and blue were kind of overused in a lot of the teams in Overwatch. So again, A for effort, and just seeing the excitement from Washingtonians around me, it does add a bit of just excitement to it. Even though I'm not really a fan of the team, it does add a bit of like I get infected by it. So yeah.
Yeah, and for the Spitfire fans who are interested in seeing them in action, they will actually get to see them next week. They play Thursday, February 21st against the Spitfire, so you will get to see that.
Yeah, most
Talking
definitely.
a little bit about the other teams. You talked about the over saturation of red and blue. That the most unique branding or branding of a team so far is probably the Hangzhou Spark, who are actually pink. So now we have a pink and a purple team, which is actually not something you really ever see in a professional sports outside of Europe soccer, because there's an oversaturation of teams. So that's one of the cool new color schemes. I think the most hyped up team is going to be the Vancouver team, the Vancouver Titans. I don't know why they're the Titans, but they have a sweet logo. It's of a Yeti. So I feel like there could have been a lot better branding there with the name, but that's beside the point. They actually brought in the whole runaway squad from last year, who I think has been together for 2 years now. After Cloud9 took the original runaway squad, that um, you guys might recognize some names such as Hureg. He was playing DPS for a runaway last year, so I think that they are probably going to be the most hyped up a new team just based off the fact that they brought in a bunch of new players. I know the Paris team has all European players, which is pretty cool to see. So, some other changes in the league. They actually cut down a lot on the matches. Last year, the teams played 40 matches, which allowed um, Shanghai to lose 40 matches in a row. And now they are playing 28 with bye weeks mixed in. The stages are set apart a little bit more. I believe there's 3 weeks between stages now as opposed to just one. And they're going to move the All Star game between stages 2 and 3 just to kind of break it up a little bit more. This is to give the players more rest just due to the fact that they kind of overplayed them last year, and to give them time to go back to like their quote unquote city to do some in town fan events and such for that. So you will get to see the Spitfire in LA, or they play in Oakland
Yeah,
for the
I think they play in Anaheim or Burbank. That's where the arena. Where the
okay.
arena is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's in Burbank.
Okay. Yeah. So Burbank, you will get to see them in London at some point throughout the year. Um, Another pretty cool thing that they're doing this year is they're giving these homestand weekends where Dallas Fuel, Atlanta Reign, and then the Valiant get to play kind of a home game, because like the whole idea of Overwatch League to have it was to have these geographic bases for these teams and to have them travel. I'm not sure if it's going to be around the world or continent. I guess that's going to be something for another year. But they're going to have a home game in Dallas and Atlanta and Los Angeles, which is pretty hyped to see. I know I just threw a lot at you, Dr. Manhattan. Do you have anything that you want to add to what I just said?
No, I mean it's just some of these new teams here are really exciting, and also I actually didn't know this, but the whole point, I mean, at least the color scheme, I can tell you with the Titans is actually because of the fact that the owner of the Titans is actually the same people who own the Canucks from the hockey team. So
Makes
I think
sense.
that's why the color scheme is that way. I'm not sure. Again, the Titan thing is a bit weird, but yeah, they're super hyped. It's good to see Hureg back. He was a former London DPS. He used to play on GC Busan with Profit. Also, shout out to Rascal because he came from the NRG. He was on the NRG, which is the contenders team for San Francisco Shock in Overwatch Contenders for North America, and he got promoted from there to the San Francisco Shock team now as a starter with Sinatra, which is good to see him back as well. Like some of you guys remember that back when Cloud9 Kongdu was a thing, he and Birdring were deadly. So I think that's really all I gotta add in terms of these rebrandings. They're pretty cool. Guangzhou actually didn't know was owned by the company Billy, which if you guys don't know, that's basically like that's like the YouTube or Twitch of like China. That's one of the many services that you can get in for streaming in China. And actually, they have a team in the LPL called Billy Gaming. So, and that's their logo was blue and is kind of blue and pink. So that explains the whole like really bold choice for like jerseys. But not like clearly the fans seem to love them. And I mean, we saw how much Chinese viewership we got from last year with the Shanghai Dragons, even with them being mediocre. But like, it's just an exciting time for Overwatch League. The lesser matches means we're gonna have much more variation along with the lesser stages because I kind of have to agree with Doa. I think Doa, Bren, Sideshow, and Monty agree that the quality of games weren't really that good in season 4. I feel like some teams were just not really trying their hardest. So with season 3 is gonna be a bit more like that. But no, it's exciting, and it's been too long since Overwatch has been gone, and I'm excited to see how they rebound from this amazing year that was season one.
Yeah, and one of the cool things, while kind of on that topic, is since this is the second year and they've added a bunch of new teams, like there's a bunch of storylines coming into this that, well, we didn't quite have as much of last year. Like we have the battle for Canada, with Toronto and Vancouver. There's a bunch of Chinese teams now. We have the battle for Europe in a way, which is London and Paris. I can't think of anyone else that might fit that bill. So,
I mean, you had a couple. I
oh,
mean, yeah, you have some stuff. I mean, we have the fact that there's so many players being shuffled around. Like, I mean, Fissure is now on his third team, and like, I mean, like that's their team with the Seoul Dynasty. You have Hureg and Rascal, these two former London players, and Closer, who's on the Dallas Fuel. I mean, you also have, the fact that Paris kind of wants to prove that hey, we can make a lineup that not only we can make a good lineup of a team that's from their country or their region without having to to pander or say like because I feel like that was part of the reason why people didn't like the Houston Outlaws is because they wanted to sell hey we're all American and this is Houston and it's just like it felt like they just chose that roster just to pander to fans saying hey yeah America right like they're trying to prove some stuff like that and they're the only team that does not have any Europeans or not any Koreans whatsoever when you consider 54% of the uh, population of the Overwatch League is Korean. So you'll have a lot of that stuff along with these new guys coming out, and I'm just it's just supremely exciting, and I can't wait to see how the season turns out.
to be fair, that is like the most Texas thing that you can do. So I'll give him
Fair
credit for
enough.
that. One more storyline I forgot that I alluded to earlier is how long does it take for the Shanghai Dragons to win a game? Because they went 0-40 last year. So I have to imagine that they cannot go 0-28 this year. They changed up like most of their roster. They actually kept the female player.
Giggity. That was really
Yeah,
cool.
which is cool to see. I'm hoping that we are able to see more women jump into the competitive esports scene, just because I think that they do have a lot that they can offer that um that and it improves like the player base like overall and expands it. So
Yeah, yeah.
the first week for the Spitfire is the Philadelphia Fusion. It's a rematch of the finals last year. That's Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then the second game is Saturday, the 16th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time against Paris Eternal. So I think the biggest thing is obviously going to be the rematch with Philadelphia. These are two of last season's biggest teams, along with New York. So seeing how we measure up against a big boy is going to be interesting.
Yeah, no, most definitely. The only thing that's gonna be weird is it's almost not gonna be the same in terms of like the matchup, considering Philadelphia made a few changes in their lineup. For those who didn't keep up with it, so their biggest names that they are no longer on the team are their flex tank Hotba, who was their main diva player in the finals. If you guys watched that, and he left. He's now part of the Guangzhou Charge, and you'll have Shadowburn, probably one of the best DPS like in the entire league, and one of the best DPS in Europe. He is now joining the Paris Eternal. So that's kind of it. I'm not gonna say it completely changes the matchup, but it's still the same, more or less. But that's gonna be the thing. It's gonna be good that it's gonna be like a rematch of that amazing final. How we match up against them, it shouldn't be terribly hard. I mean, we beat them. We already beat them in the finals in two best of fives, and I'm more than confident we can do it again. It won't be as hype in the sense of it's going to be a battle between the DPS as we saw it towards that, especially because a lot of what the hot buzzword that we've seen in Overwatch competitive is goats. So that's gonna I mean, it's really gonna see how both teams adapt to that. I mean, there are some pretty decent tanks on the Philadelphia Fusion, and that's where I'll give them their credit. But I mean, we have very flexible players on the London Spitfire as well that I do have to point out, and I think that that's where that gives us the edge. And some of the tanks in. I'm not too familiar with some of the tanks on Paris Eternal either.
Or so what do you mean by goats?
Okay, yeah. So goats is basically like it's called goats because it was created by that was the name of the team that basically just originated the goats playstyle. But for those who don't know who goats is, it's basically a three tank, three support kind of comp that's essentially meant to just be like a death ball kind of comp on steroids, in which it just there's so much damage coming out of people like so the main stuff you'll see is stuff like the most common form of goats you'll see is you'll usually see three tanks in the running of a diva, a Zarya, and a Reinhardt. So you'll have two, like one off tank, one pure tank like a Reinhardt, and then like the Zarya just kind of do some damage and protect some of the players. And then you'll have a Moira to kind of heal a lot of the people. You'll have a Brigitte to stop a lot of the dive, and then you'll have Lucio just to make sure that your team is flexible. Not to mention that they have some respectable damage in their comp. So there's that. But the whole point of GOATS is a very defensive. Some people consider it non-interactive. Some people consider it boring because of how long it's been prevalent it's been in the Overwatch League or just in competitive Overwatch. But it's essentially very, very defensive Overwatch, and it's very oppressive on assault maps. So in order to perfect this kind of comp as correctly as possible, you're gonna want people who are very flexible in their roles. So you're gonna want to have stuff like in order to break goats, the only solutions I've seen is stuff like really skilled Zens who can dive. I've seen cases of like Doomfist coming out in the meta to kind of just break those shields and a lot of the stuff. Um, and really, to kind of do it as well, also you need very good tanks to play that. And I would say that Gesture is really good. No question that we'll put like some like Diva on the get that to Fury. And I mean, in terms of the support line, Bedosian's played every other support. He's also played some Roadhog too. So it's like this guy. We already know he has a very deep pool. During the finals, Prophet played a lot of Brigitte and one of the better ones in the league. So while DPS isn't really the name of the game anymore as it was in the finals, this is kind of what you can expect from Overwatch. I'm sorry I probably didn't explain it as well as I could have, but that's kind of just like a TLDR or like a layman's way of how to basically just execute goats. It's just this very like just snowbally anti like disrupting comp, and it's very oppressive when played right.
Yeah, and it's gonna be exciting to see kind of how the meta develops throughout the year. Like that was one of the bigger downfalls for the New York Excelsior last year, which kind of resulted in them being knocked out by the Fusion in the semifinals of the playoffs. So it's gonna be interesting to see how the meta develops from goats to countering goats, and then how Blizzard actually stages the game around the balance changes throughout the year, because that's something we've seen in League that's made teams rise and fall. So it's bound to be something that happens in Overwatch League. Um, I think we spent enough time on this. Do you have anything else that you want to add?
Nothing else. Really want to add. I'm excited to see how just how this overall team just develops, and I'm excited for season 2.
Uh, yeah, and we get our first battle for Europe in the first week, so that's something to look out for. But yeah, let's move on to League of Legends. We'll quickly go through the Academy team. The Academy went 2-0 this week against Echo Fox and Optic. I remember watching the games, but for the life of me, I can't remember much that actually happened. Can you?
In terms of the game this weekend, it was really, I mean, it was really weird. It's just this weekend. I want to say that the thing about this weekend was it was really weird considering it wasn't just a case of Cloud9, but it seemed like what was the meta right now. I mean, it's kind of a moot point considering we're going to 9-3 next week, but it just seemed like they just put Sneaky on Ezreal duty, and it was just an example of Sneaky out of lane.
For the Academy a team last
Oh
week.
shit, Academy. Oh
Yeah.
god. No, I didn't check too much of that. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know I watched them maybe even twice for both games, but I can't remember exactly what happened, and I know that we have other stuff to talk about. As you alluded to, there was stuff that happened over the weekend. Cloud9 played TSM and Clutch Gaming. We won both games, and as you were getting to, sneaky out of lane is better than sneaky in lane. So go back to where you were.
Yeah. So the thing about it is just the fact that it was just like, um, it seemed like it wasn't the case of sneaky in general, but a lot of this thing just kind of seemed like whoever just picked Ezreal kind of won. Just because of how stale the bot lane has gotten, because of the lack of true raw power there, which is going to be what's going to be interesting as the meta goes forward. Because remember, we're going into 9-3 next week, which is the Akali nerfs. I think Silas got some buffs. I think I'm pulling it up right now. So, like, the main thing to take away in terms of like patch 9.3, which is going to be live across all the regions next week. Aatrox is got nerfed, and a lot of people said it's kind of going to be like that's kind of going to be the death of him because he can't really because he doesn't heal off of the non-damage, so it'll kill a lot of his jungle stuff. And a lot of his like laning. Kali, her Q no longer heals, and she could no longer remove the stealth from her turrets. Those are like one of the more oppressive ones. Camille Jungle's gone because her E can't stun stuff. So I'm just gonna go with the important stuff. That's the important things to note. And it's not to mention we saw a lot of reversion, a lot of buffs to crit based champions. So stuff we've been seeing in solo queue, Twitch, Kog'Maw. I've been seeing a lot of Caitlyn, Vayne, Jinx. Like these are the kind of champions that are going to really start hitting their strides now in this meta. And it's gonna you're gonna and I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of these protect the carry comps coming out towards this. We might see stuff like Lulu coming out. We might see like a lot more tank lineups coming out, and a lot of these like kind of farm up and force to late game kind of fights. Which I mean, Cloud9 was already good at. I mean, we've seen many times when Cloud9 plays to protect the carry comps, but going into 9-3 this week, it's just going to be interesting to see how we transition into that. And it's good because again, last week it was just whoever picked Ezreal just won. Like just waited to 35-40 minutes till he gets two fully stacked tier items and he wins.
Or yeah, I think you make a good point with the Ezreal thing. I think that we still will be able to pick them and kind of pick like the same kind of comp, just due to the fact that if there's a protect the carry comp, that we might be able to still kind of pick a similar dive comp and catch them off guard. But really quickly, I think we should talk about the GSM match before we jump into next week's games super quickly. So I only say that just because the matchup of Cloud9 and TSM is kind of like the de facto rivalry of NA, and actually part of this weekend resulted in TSM falling literally to last place in the league. So it was a long slugfest with TSM that we probably should have lost, but somehow we managed to claw back. I was really impressed with how TSM played the early and mid game, just due to the fact that it seemed like they could take anything that they wanted at a whim. The main thing I'm thinking of is there was a dragon fight where we were trying to like engage on them and started a fight, but they did disengage, and then Bjergsen went mid and pushed a turret down, and then he got like half health on like the next turret. The next dragon fight, he went back and took the rest of that turret, and then TSM still got that dragon, and I felt like at that point that it was a lost cause, but we managed to turn it around. What do you think kind of led to us jumping back into the game and allowing us to stall along enough for the late game as Ezreal?
Well, for starters, I would say that one of the big things that did help the Ezreal is while we didn't have the Ezreal Kench lane, and that's a very oppressive lane in the sense of it's super slippery because Kench just offers so much disengage along with Ezreal. When you dive him, he'll just easily go away. It just seemed like Sven was really good. Sven Skaren, because there's two Svens here we're talking about. He was just really good at isolating targets in some of these good team fights, and it just seemed like Niski was really good at trying to follow up in some of these fights with the Galio. And it just seemed like even though they had the lead and they were pushing down towers. It just seemed like TSM could never really get on too much the same page. There was one fight around like the blue buff on C9 side because we were playing on red side where it did look like they were doing quite well, but I mean it just and TSM could turn the fight and it turned their favor. But what really hurt TSM was a really crucial Baron fight and the lack of really true scaling and raw damage coming out of them. On top of the pocket Silas pick, which was something that nobody saw coming.
Oh yeah. Licorice's play early on was kind of skeptical to me, and I felt like it really did a poor job of matching up into the Scion. But I think Licorice kind of showed the potential of the pick that we hadn't seen before, just because Korea wasn't a, a really playing yet. So we only got to see how the LEC was playing it. So I think that was probably the first good Silas of the year. So it really unlocked the pick, and there were better options technically on the board. But like, how can you beat a comp of Zillion all and the Sandra all and a Scion all like all in one team fight? Like you can't beat that.
Yeah, and like one of the things that I think that the desk mentioned as well. I mean, I think Licorice in an interview after that game, he said like, "Yeah, I agree. My play was not very good, and there was times where I was going a bit too crazy and I was just a bit too sweaty." But one of the things that was really is kind of more of a mental thing in terms of how much presence C9 had was like Smoothie when he was on the Zillion. It's because Silas could easily steal that ult. It's almost like he couldn't even. I think at one point the Captain Flowers and Jack mentioned it. Like he couldn't even get in range to save Sven or Acadian if they wanted to go into a fight. And if you can't get in range to ult your carry a Zillion, it's like because you're afraid of Licorice kind of stealing the ult. It's like it kind of defeats the whole purpose of Zillion in the first place. And all you can do is just chuck bombs and try to get a good stun. And at some point, the Ezreal just scaled along with the fact that Zazel was so good at isolating targets with the Braum, and Braum is like a Braum at early levels, and at some points of the game can be super oppressive against that comp, especially with something like a Lucian, which it can essentially mitigate an entire Lucian ult. It was just really, really good to see out of Cloud9 and playing almost like a mental game in that sense. Like the fact that I feel like Silas is more of a mental thing than this is actually a really OP pick and go play it. And I don't know, maybe at least LCK and LPL will break it out this week. They were off for a week for the Lunar New Year, so, and they probably have been studying a bit. So I'm looking forward to see if they can break out this pick, or there's some stuff with Silas that we haven't seen yet.
Oh yeah, and I think it's going to be something to watch throughout the next week of games to see how teams utilize the pick, because I felt like he was underwhelming at first, but I played him a little bit yesterday, and I honestly did not realize that his ult was point and click, which to me seems ridiculous. I think if they really wanted to nerf him, they can make it a skill shot, but that's beside the point. Um, for next week's games, we talked a little bit about the patch already, but the Cloud9 Academy team has FlyQuest Academy at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday, and then CounterLogic Gaming Academy at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday. I will skip over that. I will skip over it just due to time. On Saturday, we have the return of Rush. Cloud9 is playing Echo Fox at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Sunday, Cloud9 is playing Optic Gaming. So, how does Cloud9 win b- both those games? We'll start off with the Echo Fox match.
So the Echo Fox match is kind of interesting considering they have this thing where they always. I think the joke is they always go 1-1. So with Echo Fox, they're good, but I feel like some of their potential is quite questionable and limited. And I feel like some of their wins have come off just really poor macro against some of their opponents, and I saw that being a big offender with them playing FlyQuest last week. One of the things I will note that's like the only really thing that seems to be working for Echo Fox, and I say working very loosely, is the mid and jungle duo of Phoenix and Rush. Like Solo was very much getting completely blasted by Viper over the past week. It was another case of that meme and a Jace. That's what happened to Solo last week. Apollo Hakuho are kind of the most tenured bot lane right now, and that's something we shouldn't like underestimate by all means. And who knows how Apollo will feel again going into these late game again crit based AD carries. But I mean, we've seen Niski play more supportive roles in other teams when he was on Splice and when he was on Envy. We've seen. I mean, it seems like Zazel's main bread and butter are some of these like really beefy supports, or who knows? Maybe with the return of crit based AD carries, we'll go back to something similar to like late season 7 with Ardent Sensor. We'll see some Enchanter supports like Lulu or Karma trying to buff up these like stuff like Kog'Maw, or like we'll see these Juggernaut comps. How we match up is interesting, again, but I think with a team like Echo Fox, it should be business as usual. And while we can't underestimate them, like any other opponent, we should take this 1 week at a time. I think that we match up against them pretty well.
Yeah, I think on paper we do match up well against Echo Fox. I think a lot of the game is going to be trying to divert a lot of the pressure that a rush can put on. It's going to be interesting to see how we draft around that. What I'm kind of excited to see mostly is Froggen back again on Karthus and how we try to mitigate that. I think it would be super sweet to see us draft as real again into Karthus, just due to the fact of the shields on the tier item, the AP one. I'm blanking on it.
Muramon, I believe. Or no, the upgraded one is
Yeah,
the Seraph's Embrace. That's the.
or yeah, Seraph's Embrace. I feel like that's kind of more of the counter as an AD carry to a Karthus ultimate than anything else. I don't actually think we'll see Froggen on Karthus, but if we did, I feel like that Ezreal could almost be the counter to that in a way, just because he wouldn't die instantly. Um, but I think on paper that is a match that we should win, just due to the fact that we kind of overpower them on an individual skill level all around the map. So I feel like that should be a business as usual game. For the second game of the week, we have the game against Optic. I said
Yes, Optic.
yes, Optic. So how do we win that game?
Um, the only dangerous thing about Optic is it's really hard to kind of. I think they finally settled their roster now that Arrow has his visa, so it's no longer that weird roster. I think it was what Gate, Asta, with Dardoch and Crown. The only thing that's gonna be kind of frightening is Niski going up against Crown, because even though, um, Nis Optic, sorry, I was blanking out. Even though Optic isn't really the best team right now, Crown has been showing very much signs of brilliance going into some of his matchups against even some guys like some top millionaires like Jensen, or I think that Optic. I mean, they haven't played TSM yet, but yeah, no. Crowd is looking really, really good for that, but I don't think he alone should be able to overwhelm the entire C9 lineup. Could be wrong. Again, I'm hoping that for the best for this team. But I'm hoping for a good game as well. But just like I said with Echo Fox, this is business as usual. Like I'm on the record at saying that Optic is probably one of the more underwhelming rosters, and it sucks because I was hoping for the best for Medios, and now he's just on Optic, and it's really confusing to see how he'll do against Cloud9. But I mean, across the board on paper, this should just be another easy match.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was actually looking at the stats while you talked, just because you talked about how well Crown was playing. In lane, he has been a decent mid laner, but what kind of jumped out to me most was the fact that Aniski has a better gold difference at 10 than Crown does, but Aniski's actually dead last in and experience a difference at 10 among all laners with a negative 240 experience difference at 10, which to me is wild, but I guess it kind of fits some of the picks that he's been doing. But yeah, I feel like their biggest strength is going to be in their mid and jungle matchup more than in anything else, and I feel like we should still kind of beat them just due to experience and language and such. I obviously crowned in elite a mid laner historically, but I think we've seen in the past year that he's not quite as good as we thought. So we're just gonna have to kind of see how that plays out. But I wouldn't be surprised to just see a Niski on Galio do D again. So I feel like this is also a business as usual game. So I'm hoping to see a second 2-0 week from our boys in blue.
Yeah, no, likewise. It's maybe not the most like super, I mean, typed up thing, but I mean, we're playing against two of our former teammates in both Meteos and in Rush this weekend. Definitely hoping that we can keep this momentum going. I mean, while and it's good to see that we're not going to let a loss from CLG kind of bring us down, or a loss from Team Liquid bring us down. And hopefully, with 3 games left in the round robin left for the first round, we can end this as strong as humanly possible. Because as far as I'm concerned, we're probably firmly the second best team in NA. Like, I mean, Team Liquid's again the team to beat still, and you can say, "Oh, what does it matter if you're not the best?" But I mean, those along with points, along with representation, I would say we're firmly the second best team right now.
Yeah, I can agree with that. We're the only team that has, or there's only 2 teams with a winning record. Team Liquid at 6-0, Cloud9 at 4-2. TSM is tied for last with 2-4, which is cool to see. Echo Fox is 3-3, and Optic is 2-4. So it should be an exciting week. They both got unlucky to draw against us, so I'm hoping to see our win streak extend and maybe hope Team Liquid can drop a game or two soon.
Yeah, the big question right now is who's going to stop Team Liquid right now, because that's I think that's what everyone's waiting on for the most part.
Yeah, that loss against CLG really kills us because now we have to rely on someone else beating Team Liquid, which is going to be tough for anybody in the league to do, even us, even if we do grab them on blue side next time we play. So our
It's going to
future
be
is
pretty tough.
not really in our hands at this point, but we can still get a good playoff spot, but that's still weeks away at this point. So there's a lot of League of Legends to be played, and it's exciting times now that the Spitfire is starting back up. So hopefully we can have a nice 4-6-0 week if you include Academy. And I think that's about it. I know we had a really long episode just due to the Overwatch League. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, man, it's super exciting, and I can't wait to see how this week turns out.
Alrighty. We will be back next week reviewing Cloud9 League of Legends and then the Spitfire and anything else that happens. Goodbye.
All right, man. Thanks.
Oh, where can we find you?
In terms of my my social, you can find me and my content. You can actually find my channel on YouTube. It is Dr. Manhatten LOL, and that's actually where I include a lot of my Twitter and my Instagram, where people just can talk to me all the time. I stream actually more frequently on my YouTube channel, so yeah, you can find me again. That's Dr. Manhatten LOL on YouTube, and yeah, feel free to just stop on by and just feel free to talk League of Legends. I still make content somewhat regularly, but I moved more towards streaming. So yeah, definitely excited, and hope to see you guys all there.
All right, thank you. Talk to you later.
See you guys.
Bye.